Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to our weekly meeting, but this week there's a small difference. We are entering into the management deliberations for this KMA year, and we have, as you all know, none other than two stalwarts with us today. Mr. Most respected Kozhikode sir and Dr. Saji Gopinath. Of course, they will be introduced. Before we start our meeting, I would request our student members, Sanu and Adam, to kindly come forward for the prayer.
Svastirбhavatu Sarvesham Shantirbhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Sandhu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Margasya Dukkha Bhave Margasya Dukkha Bhave.
Thank you. Now, I would request the chair for the memorial lecture, Saji Nair, to kindly address us with the welcome and introduction of our speakers.
Respected Chief Guest of today, Dr. Saji Gopinath, the Guru of all of us, Sri Venugopal C. Govind, respected President of KMA, Honorary Secretary, Chair of Management Week, Sri Shashi Karta, past presidents, MC members, and my dear friends. We used to conduct 3 memorial lectures remembering 3 stalwarts in management field of Cochin: M.K.K. Nair, K.T. Chandy, and M.V. Paili. M.K.K. Nair memorial lecture was over, and today we are going to have K.T. Chandy memorial lecture. So we used to conduct 1 memorial lecture amidst of the management week. So today we are our management week celebrations are starting, and we thought of having today inauguration by our chief guest and start with the management week with the K.T. Chandy memorial lecture. So K.T. Chandy is a man who is known as management education father of India, you can say, because he is the man established the first IIM of India, IIM Calcutta. So we want to get one IIM man to be the chief guest to deliver the speech today. So though we have been taken when he was the Vice Chancellor, but he is now IIM, he is back to IIM. So we got Dr. Saji Gopinath. See, K.T. Chandy, we all know that he was a management education administrator and a business executive and founder director of IIM Calcutta, the first IIM in India. So he's an LLB law graduate from Mumbai and then from London School of Economics, and Bharat Law from Middle Temple, and worked in Lever Brothers and established or played a key role in making the Hindustan Liver. And we are not going much into that because the person who was worked with him is there to introduce about K.T. Chandy. So I am not going too much onto that. So I have 2 responsibilities today. First of all, welcoming all, and second is for introducing our the chief guest of this occasion. So first of all, I would like to extend my warm welcome to the chief guest of today, Sri Saji Gopinath, who has been accepted our invitation and came all the way from Calicut by after a travel of hectic travel in Dinashadabdi, and after reaching some issues, and then finally reached little bit late to our this function. So heartily welcome you for this. As I mentioned, the guru of all the people of Cochin. We were discussing with the developments of Cochin, and the man who knows the each and everything is say BCG. So we used to say that each and every food item, the salt is the major ingredient which will give taste for the food. So that is why without BCG there is no any development in Cochin. So BCG is inevitable for any development for port or airport. And he was telling some stories which we don't know about the airport before the beginning of Cochin International Airport. Some story he knows that. So that is why we were insisting him to write a book, but he is not yielded for that till now. Sir, happily welcome you for this. Also welcome the president, our president, dynamic president of KMA this year, Sri Bibu Punuran, to this function. And I also welcome Honorary Secretary Sri Anil Joseph for this function. And welcoming Sri Karta, who is the chair of the Management Week celebrations, to this function. And also welcoming all past presidents, managing committee members, and invited guests and other distinguished participants. Now I'm passing over to my second responsibility to introducing our chief guest, Sri Dr. Saji Gopinath, a technocrat turned academician, former Vice Chancellor of Kerala Digital University and also former Vice Chancellor of APJ Abdul Kalam Technical University, known as KTU or Kerala Technical University. He was a gold medalist in BTech for Mechanical Engineering from Kerala University, done his MTech in IISc, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and also taken doctorate from Indian Institute of Science. He has worked in L&D and ONGC for a short while, and he joined in IIM Kozhikode since its inception on 1997. He played a key role in making this IIM as one of the 5 top management schools of India. He made a significant contribution in the technical education as well as startup ecosystem in Kerala. He was the CEO of Kerala Startup Mission, and under his leadership, Kerala Startup Mission has been constantly ranked as top performer in India and recognized by the Government of India. He was instrumental in converting IIT-MK into a University of Digital Science, Innovation and Technology, and also was the first Vice Chancellor of it. He held additional charge as the Vice Chancellor of Kerala Technical University when it was an eventual situation where he forced to take over as the additional charge of Vice Chancellor due to the Vice Chancellor issues, when Vice Government and Governor issues and all like that, but successfully completed his tenure there. Then he was the Director of Kerala Academy of Skill Excellence, and before Digital University he was the Managing Director of IIMK and member of CM's High Power IT Committee, and he was the Director of TFI Management Institute in Manipal and the founding Dean of School of Management in Bennett University, and his research areas are project management, supply chain management, technology, entrepreneurship, and startups. He had several publications in his credit as the thesis as well as the published publications. And he has been recognized by so many agencies, including Kerala Management Association, State Startup Champion in 2019, KMA IT Leadership Award in 2019, Management of Corporate and Public Sector Leadership Award by Calicut Management Association, British Council Knowledge Economy Fellowship, and Thai Ecosystem Enabler Award, ISTD Transformation Guru Award, Education Leadership Award, and Future Kerala Best CEO Award. So we are getting another great academician to talk about an academician who has been paved the way for the management education in India. Thank you. Thank you.
Respected Chief Guest of the day, Dr. Saji Gopinath, most respected Venugopal C. Govind Sir, VCG as we affectionately call him, Chair for this memorial lecture, Mr. A.C.K. Nair, Honorary Secretary, Dr. Anil Joseph, Chairman of the Management Week celebrations, Mr. C.S. Katta, past presidents of KMA, managing committee members, dear KMA members, and dear student members, once again a warm good evening to all of you. As we all know, today we mark yet another day in history of KMA because we are starting this year's Management Week celebrations, and what a good way to start it with two stalwarts from the management side sitting with us and going to deliver their insights into management. Coming to the topic which we will be discussing, of course, Mr. K.T. Chandy, as was introduced by Mr. A.C.K. Nair, he has already told who he was, and it's a memorial lecture on Mr. K.T. Chandy, but the topic today is management in the age of transformation. I think I should not be speaking anything about management right now because we have two stalwarts, two wizards sitting with us. So they'll be speaking more to you. All I can tell you is that take any company for that matter, it is not, I believe personally, it is not the proprietor or the managing director or the promoter who has made that company. He has always entrusted, he or she has always entrusted this with a group of great professionals who run it for them after their initial thoughts and ideas. And always there's a good team behind every good company, be it small, be it great. And that, I believe, is how small companies are made into great companies. That is management transformation. All I can share is my own experiences of the last 30 years in building up my small company from what it was then and what it is now. Because when we started in I am in the healthcare sector, for those of you who don't know, the students, members especially. When we started way back in 1993, we had only those manual bills. So you can imagine, I don't think even a small shopkeeper today can imagine about a manual bill other than probably a kirana shop or so. So then came the era of the computers or the electronic typewriters, and then that was how it was. Then one fine morning, I think, and even the reports were typed and given. One fine morning, I remember two brothers walking in and saying that, they had something called a software which they could install into our computer, and when computer was kind of big at that point of time. And if I remember right, they wanted to sell this to us for about 4,500 rupees, a software. So gone are those days now, as we all know. Today, in the healthcare sector, if somebody comes to your home for a home blood collection, at least from our company, they carry a tab with them. They bill you then and there instantly, and that particular bill gets into the central computer in our place. If a sample is transported all the way from maybe Chandy or Kozhikode or Kannur, wherever, immediately our central lab knows about what is going to happen the next day, because that sample is already built from that end. So that is the way technology is growing, and that is what I have to say. So coming to transformation in management, I think customer needs are highly important, and in our case, our reporting doctors needs are very, very important. For each company, it is different, but unless we rise up to the occasion of transforming ourselves, each company, each individual, we are not going to reach anywhere. Now, sitting in any part of the world, we recently had the the luck, or somebody had called us from a country called Chad, which is in West Africa, a highly underdeveloped country, and they're trying to get into healthcare in a big way. We had to set up something called a histopathology lab for them. They don't, and no doctor is going to go and stay there because the facilities there are not good enough. But then we had set up a facility over there for the technicians. We trained the technicians from here, set them up there, so that as and when they take a human sample from there, not a blood sample, a human sample, which we call it the biopsy for people to understand, they could immediately transmit the images of that, once they make a slide of that, to our central computer or central lab here, and a doctor sitting here can immediately view it, give an opinion, a second opinion. And that's the way technology is going, that's the way we have to transform ourselves. That's all I wanted to say, because I can only speak from my domain. There are so many people sitting here from different domains of industry. This is what I have to say. So we keep transforming because of external factors as well as internal factors. Maybe the government will change its rules, we have to change, we have to transform. That is what all management is all about. But these are my few small thoughts on what transformation in management is all about. But I'm sure that both Dr. Saji Gopinath and Saji sir can throw much more light on all these subjects. Because they are highly knowledgeable, and let's listen to them and let's welcome them once again. Thank you.
Good evening. President Bibu, dignitaries on and off the dais. As the chairman of Management Week, I extend a warm welcome to you all to this 1 week long grand celebrations. February 21st marks as the Management Day, a day dedicated to recognize excellence in leadership, innovation and management practices. The Kerala Management Association proudly celebrates Management Week from the 17th to 21st. Bring together thoughts, leaders, professionals and experts to share insights and inspire the next generation of managers. Today, we have the KT Chandy Memorial Lecture, and the chairman of Memorial Lectures, Mr. A.C.K. Nair, already provided the details. On the 19th, Cochin Customs Commissioner, Mr. Guru Karan Singh Vyas, IRS, will deliver a talk on the key industry trends and challenges. On 20th, we celebrate Health Day, starting from morning 7 a.m. with a yoga session by yoga chief trainer Ms. Liji Abraham, followed by a talk, Managing Aches and Pains, a practical guide for managers by Department of Sports Medicine of Medical Trust Hospital, and also a free medical checkup campaign by Medivision. On the 21st, we celebrate Management Day with a special focus on women's leadership and empowerment. The day will feature the Women Managers Forum led by Chair Ms. Lega Balachandran, where Ms. Elizabeth Isaac will talk about beauty and leadership, the power of natural ingredients. I request each one of you actively participate and make Management Week a truly enriching experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karta. Now I would request Mr. Saji Gopinath to kindly address us on the remembrance speech of Mr. K.T. Chandy.
Good evening to all of you. Honored chief guest of this evening, Dr. Saji Gopinath, respected President Bibu, my good friends Karta and Daniel, dear colleagues in KMA, dear students. In fact, I'm very happy that the Kerala Management Association is organizing functions of this nature to remember and pay homage to a great visionary, a management leader par excellence, a kind of which perhaps the state has not produced or may not even produce. That kind of a towering tall personality that K.T. Chandy was in the field of management, and that we remember him and pay homage to him. Every year is a matter of great happiness and satisfaction. I must compliment Kerala Management Association office bearers for organizing an event like this. I knew K.T. Chandy for close to 4 decades, from 1966 to 2006. 6 weeks to begin with, very intimately, and 6 years much later, very closely, and off and on in between. Every time you come across K.T. Chandy, he will make a terrific impression on you. The personality that he is, in terms of his godly appearance, his demeanor, his mannerisms, his aura, his poise, his dignity, every aspect of it. You feel instantly if you look at him walking in, someone like Rock Hudson or Cary Grant moving in. So handsome in all respects, hair well combed, impeccably dressed. That was what his personality was. Those who have not seen him, I thought I must give you a picture of what he is about. By education, by his calling, by grooming, by vocation, by evolution and all that. It was an absolutely well-planned, well-structured professional life all through. Nothing came by chance. Nothing came by chance. When you talk about management leaders or management gurus, as we call, or experts, there are obviously sometimes 2 types of people. Someone who can handle many things together, competent at multitasking. Several things, at 10 o'clock in one, 11 o'clock, another one, 12 o'clock, another next day, going on, moving on fast. M.K. Nair was someone like that. I worked with him too for nearly a decade only. Unfortunately, the cruel fate suppressed him or faded his competence at that level. Now, he used to handle 25-30 aspects at any point of time, heading several organizations, several institutions, several movements and all that. And his mark of his impressionable competence stamp will be there in everything that he does. Great vision, nothing small at all. Perhaps if his professional career had not been curtailed at very young age of prime age of 51, if he too had gone along like A.T. Chandy till 65 for retirement and another 20 years or 30 years post-retirement, he would have perhaps achieved greater heights. But K.T. Chandy for that matter, one idea, one at a time, he will work on it with absolute professionalism. He will see through success of that. His career also was good. He was born in a very aristocratic family, had a good education, school education at CMS Kote. He had his degree at Madras Christian College, political science and economics. He took his law degree from Bombay University, gold medalist, rank 1. And then he decided to leave India on his own, much against the advice of many of his friends and family. He went to UK and he had his postgraduate LLM from London School of Economics, because law was his passion. From his very young days, corporate governance, corporate management, all were in his blood. Corporate constitution, corporate law. And he took post-graduation in corporate law, LLM, from London School of Management, and he entered the bar at law, the highly prestigious Middleton, London. He decided litigation is not his field, but management was. So he went into corporate executive positions, many good companies. I will not go into that. Several good companies, 3 years, 4 years, in a very structured manner. By the time he was hardly 43, 44, he was director of Lever Brothers, one of the priciest corporate giants in UK at that point of time. He was hugely successful, I was told. Not many records are available as to his achievements, but from what little we know, he had made immense contribution as a hugely successful executive in whatever position he has taken up. Not merely with a law background alone, he has blossomed as a well-tuned, well-tailored, fine business executive and leader in his own right. Lever Brothers sent him to India to set up Hindustan Lever or Lever Brothers. Lever Brothers had in India from 53 onwards, but they wanted to corporatize and set up an Indian company. And he was, because his law background, he came here and he worked with many of his contemporaries. Closest to us, Prakash Tandon, another person as tall as K.T. Chandy, and had his career also similar to that. He was a chartered accountant, trained in England, had his training also in Hindustan Lever, became director at a very young age, came back, joined Lever Brothers in India, very soon became in 1961 chairman of Hindustan Lever after Anthony Dias. Anthony Dias was the first chairman, followed by Prakash Tandon. And they worked together in setting up this Hindustan Lever. It was based in Calcutta. Calcutta was at that point of time, the nerve center of all industrial activities. In the 1950s and 60s, can you imagine? 27% of India's industrial activity was in Calcutta. 27%. And by 2000 or so, it dropped down to 1.7. Now it may be just around 1 point. Calcutta has gone down to that extent. But they were all established in Calcutta at that point of time. And then, you see, when he was working on developing Hindustan Lever, Dr. B.C. Roy, he's called the Bidhan Chandra Roy. He was 79, 80-year-old chief minister, a very eminent physician, a leader, a tall leader, a revolutionary, an institution builder. Joined politics and very soon became chief minister. For 10 years he was chief minister. He spotted a K.T. Chandy and asked K.T. Chandy, I want you to set up an education institution. An education institution which will give management training. We did not have a single management institute at that point of time in India. Dr. Vikram Sarabhai was working simultaneously at Ahmedabad to set up an Indian Institute of Management, and they too joined hands. Together they planned, and in 1961 November, Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta was set up. under the first chairmanship of K.T. Chandy. In 1961, 1 month later, December, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai set up the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, the second one, and both of them worked hand in hand. 5 years, new management concepts, international partnerships, faculty development, structuring the whole of management education. Think of anything that was necessary at that point of time of the wholeness. Chandy was able to do that. In 5 years, Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta came to be recognized. He got it tied up with the Sloan's Institute of Management, one of the finest management institutes in the whole world, under the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. Dr. Vikram Sarabhai was not much behind. He knew what Chandy was doing, so he tied up with Harvard Business School. So MIT, Sloan's Institute of Management for IIM Calcutta, and Harvard Business School for Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. That partnership, that collaboration, and that is what made this institute, both of them what they are today. 5 to 6 years, he was hugely successful. Government of India noticed him. As director of IIM Calcutta, he was involved in several governmental committees, both in the Bengal government, state government, and also the central government. One of the most important thing was Prime Minister wanted him to conceptualize a very outstanding practical family planning program for India, which was most essential at that point of time. And he was put also in the committee to help draft programs and plans for that, which he did successfully, working as director of IIM Calcutta. And then Government of India asked him to take over as the chairman of the Food Corporation of India, knowing his competence. Because at that point of time, Jawaharlal Nehru's time, commanding heights of the public sector not doing well, no serious management concepts, precepts, policies in public sector. So he was requested to join the chairmanship of Food Corporation. 1 year he did well, some little things in. But then government thought he must be moved to higher level. And in 1968, 1 year later, he took over as chairman of the Hindustan Steel Limited. Nothing could stop him after that. In 5 years' time, as chairman of the Hindustan Steel from 1968 to probably 1972. 1972, July, if I remember correct, he made history as far as the steel industry is concerned. Modernized. Hindustan Steel later became Steel Authority of India, you know that. But steel production was at the lowest, capacity was at the lowest, productivity was very low, practically no management of the steel sector. K.T. Chandy introduced all that in the steel sector. 72, he completed his tenure in Hindustan Steel. He was thinking, Government of India wanted him to take up many things, but he wanted to come to Kerala. He told me at that point of time, I wanted to do something for my own state. He discussed with C. Achyuthamenan, then the Chief Minister. So Achyuthamenan said, you come and take over whatever you want. You know Achyuthamenan what he was. We never had a Chief Minister like Achyuthamenan, and we will never have also. 7 years he was our Chief Minister, from 1970 to 77, golden era of Kerala. So under Achyuthamenan, he was appointed the chairman of the Kerala State Industrial Development Corporation. 25-30 companies in the public sector to be revamped. What he did under KSADC is sheer wonders. KSAD has no structure, KSAD has no professionalism, KSAD has no management, KSAD has no controls, no policies. Everything had to be done. Of course, it was running fairly well, but he brought about tremendous changes, dramatic management changes in KSADC. And importantly, he started looking at many of the companies from KSADC had financed and brought up. And he wanted to start many good companies. Keltron, for example, in fact, his baby. He discussed with KPP Nambiar, and he wanted an electronics industry to be set up. He brought KPP Nambiar, and they worked together, and Keltron was set up under the tutelage of K.T. Chandy. But the K.T. Chandy wanted it to be under KSADC, but KPP Nambiar, for what he is, Chandy himself has told me, that if you want me to work in Keltron, give me 100% responsibility, no interference. It must be a separate company, I must be chairman, managing director, no questions. If you want, Chandy said, okay, see the magnanimity of that, take over. And he never interfered, and you know what KPP Nambiar did to Keltron. Kerala Minerals and Metals, the best public sector undertaking in Kerala now, started modestly to manufacture titanium dioxide pigment and all the other subordinate materials needed also. Integrated, one composite integrated plan. You must go and see what KMML is today. Ilmenite, selemenite, rutile, zircon, everything. And a huge volume of titanium dioxide pigment. The foundation was laid during KT Chandy's period. Today the net worth of the company is about 1,125 crores. Imagine that. We are proud of that. That's his baby. And then he started looking at many other companies, Kerala Chemicals and Proteins Limited. Today Nitha Gelatin, Japanese company collaboration. Company was coming up. He became chairman of the company, and he started, wanting to develop. Mitsubishi collaboration was there. Nita collaboration was there, and it came up. The whole company in terms of production, volume, capacity, productivity, everything. Several such companies, he was the chairman. Carbon and Chemicals Limited, I don't know, George is here now. I remember I worked very closely with him. Carbon and Chemicals Limited was one company where carbon and black was to be manufactured in Cochin. There was no facility. We had the Cochin refineries, which is giving the byproduct, which is needed for carbon and black, that was found to be good at that point of time. And Cochin carbon black industries were set up. But when after it was set up, it was found that the Cochin refinery feedstock was not enough adequate for the kind of machine that they had. It cannot take the feedstock of the Cochin refinery. The whole project of carbon and chemical industries Cochin would have been, completely suspended, blocked, and it would have gone hay. KT Chandy took the initiative at that point of time, discussed with Madras Refineries Limited, and made arrangements for feedstock to be transferred, entire feedstock raw material for carbon black for Cochin plant to be transported from Madras to Cochin. Of course, it affected the economics at some point of time. The company could not make the kind of performance that they would have, and they were not able to. Subsequently, Philips Carbon came and took over the company. That is another story. That company is doing very well now in Ambalabedu. For all this, he was instrumental in. His leadership style, his management style is something, inexplicable. I've experienced that. As I said, my first exposure in 1966, MKK wanted some of us to, we were all working for Kerala Management Association, revival at that point. 57 KMA was found, but it was dead. After MKK took over only in the 60s, KMA started reviving. So he called Paul Pothan, he called Dr. Pally, he called me, he called George Stefanos, he called SK Warrior, he called Kannappan from Travancore Rayons, for different areas, finance management, cost management, finance, HR management, marketing management, inventory control, all of us. And he said, now you have got to start the School of Management Studies in India. So he wanted us to start initially as a unit of FSCT, which School of Management was started. So it was okay, we all started with that, started taking classes and all that initially. And then he found out. He used to come and sit in our classes. All of us, we don't know anything about management. We don't know how to take classes for management students or anything. First management MBA students, evening class. And all are from various industries around, evening classes only. Like AK Nair, GPC Nair, or all of our students. They all used to come and so many executives of FSCT were all there. But we had no idea. So MKK said, this is not the way how classes have to be taken for MBA students. I will do something for you. So he talked to KT Chandy at that point of time, who was director of Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, and he brought a team of 5 eminent professors of IIM then under the leadership of KT Chandy. KT Chandy, Professor Srivastava, Banerjee, Dr. Raman, and Mrs. Mathri Devi. 5 eminent professors of Indian Institute of Management came to Cochin and stayed in the FSCT Udyog Mandal guest house for 6 weeks, and he enlisted all of us who were taking classes then, along with so many managing directors, executive directors of various companies. 25 of us were made to stay in the FSCT Udyog Mandal guest house and take training from these IIM professors as what is management. So we listened to KT Chandy talking about government and business, constitutional business, corporate governance. We knew nothing about it, we never heard about anything like that. all that K.T. Chandy during breakfast time, during lunch time, during afternoon, so many classes, exercises, games, syndicate games, management games, case studies and all that, different word for us. But 6 weeks made a lot of difference. 1966 I'm talking about. Then he went back. I didn't see him after that, we only exchanged correspondence. He was my guru anyway. All of us then, even Dr. Piley. Even Dr. Piley, the management guru whom all we respect now, he knew nothing about how to take classes. Because he was somewhere in Lucknow University and all that, he had not taken classes for management. He knew. We all learned from Dr. K.T. Chandy and his team as to how we should handle classes for management students, how it has to be practically oriented, industry interface, networking, many things which is necessary for management education. That was what he was. And then 72, as I said, when he came back to KSIDC, he made a complete transformation of the entire industrial scenario. Discipline was brought in. Companies which were weak and all that were specifically pointed out. In every board meeting, some of the board meetings I have attended on behalf of some of the constituent companies, I have listened to him. The way how he conducts board meeting, absolutely very dignified, to the point. He will not say anything. He will listen to all that. Final word is from him. When he says, this is how it has to be done, it is done. Now that kind of no interaction. When he speaks, nobody should disturb. When somebody speaks, he will not interfere. He will very closely watch and observe. That kind of a keen, analytic, creative thinking mind. That's what K.T. Chandy was all about. And then what I was impressed, another aspect, I told you what he has done for formation of new companies, management of new companies, restructuring new companies, conducting board meetings and professionalizing the corporate scenario, all that. He laid this foundation for all that in Kerala. And most important, what I learned from him was negotiating with foreign collaborators. For many of these companies, at that point of time, foreign collaboration is a must. I have attended to many foreign collaborations, FACT, Cochin Refinery, those days. I have seen that. Whatever the foreign collaborators insist, we simply accept that. Because we are takers, we have no option. They will say, this is it, this is your equity, this is your loan, this is your technology, these are your capital equipment, this is the royalty, this is this. We accept that. We have no guts to even talk to them. But we sat with him in 2-3 negotiations with foreign collaborators, Japanese collaborator, French collaborator, US collaborator. And he will sit in a very high, very authoritative, no question. There is no question of whether he is an Indian talking about intercompany, his aura was different, his demeanor was different. As equals, he will listen to them very carefully. They will run through many things and they will say, finally, we will only say, most of the collaboration agreements, we will say that we can't pay so much of technical service fee. We cannot pay so much of royalty, please reduce. That's all Guinea argument part. If it is with Chandy discussing a foreign collaboration agreement, take one after the other. First, the capital equipment, discuss, finalize. What concessions given, decide. Next, equity, next, loan component. How much loan they give, what rate, when repayment, decide. Capital equipments, how much, what cost, what volume, item 8. Technology transfer, what cost, how much. Technical service fees, how much, to what extent. Foreign technicians deployment, their fees, their service charges. Item 8 may take sometimes 2 days, 3 days. Yes, he will go through the royalty payment, technical service payment, performance guarantee. He will never leave it there. They are giving the plan, they are giving the technology, they are giving the technicians to install. They have got to give the performance guarantee. If the machine fails, they have got to take and replace it or do whatever it is. He will insist on that. Performance guarantee clause, what I have learned from him, is very important and so important. And then buyback also. Products they have to buy back, anything, whatever we produce, substantially. All these separate components of the agreement. 2 years, 2 days and 3 days, when the whole foreign collaboration is discussed and finalized. So we stand to gain quite a bit. That was the man, a complete man in all respects. So we must sorry that he 1978 he left. He lived for another almost 30 years. At the age of 65, he left Kerala government service, and he was in Kerala another 27 years. We could not use him. We did not use him to the extent he should have, because he was then like anyone. He was the director of many companies, Tata Group companies, and many other companies. He was part-time. He was giving consultancy to many IIMs, many management institutions. He was giving business consultancies to several consulting organizations. He was helping many startup companies, advising and all that. He was doing until probably when he was 89, 90, he was doing everything possible for Kerala's regeneration. The last time when I met him, he died in 2006. In the year 2000, I had the honor and privilege to receive the Management Leadership Award of Kerala Management Association. And M.K. Koshi wanted K.T. Chandy to come and give me the award. I said he will not come. He's 87, anyway, we talked to him. So they talked to him, he said, oh, I don't have that one, I'm not doing it. And I said, you want to Venugopal Singh? Oh, he's my boy, I will come. So he came and he gave me the Management Leadership Award. And that is it, I didn't see him after that. I pay my homage along with all of you to the memory of that great man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for showing so much of light on this great man of leadership. Now, I would request our chief guest of the day, Dr. Saji Gopinath, to kindly address us.
Good evening. Respected President of KMA, Ms. Dipu, most respected management professional Guru, Sri Venugopal C. Govind, Mr. A.C. Nair, Chair Memorial Lecture, Sri C.S. Karta, Chair Management Week, Dr. Anil Joseph, Honorary Secretary of KMA, distinguished members of Kerala Management Association and students who are attending, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great privilege for me to be part of this Management Week celebration, commencement of this Management Week celebration, and also be a part of this function, which is remembering this tall personality, Sri K.T. Chandy. As we all know that I come from, most of my professional life was with IIM, and it's a special privilege for me to be a part of a lecture which is organized in memory of the first director of the first IIM of the country. In fact, what we have today in management education, which is globally now being acknowledged, is actually the result of personalities like Sri Professor K.T. Chandy. And it's a special privilege for me, and I thank KMA for giving me that opportunity to be here. So I thought I would speak on a topic which perhaps may be of interest to all of us, where we know that the world is actually going through a lot of transformation. Multiple forces of transformation is happening. And how is this management as a profession is actually getting shaped due to that. The President has mentioned about both internal and external transformation. So I would like to bring in front of you a few changes which is happening, or few forces of change which is happening, and then see how we actually is going to make a big impact on our life, which will be the type of field in which we are working as it. And when I was listening to Sri Venugopal C. Govind giving such a detailed remembrance of Professor Chandy, I thought that the words of Dr. Abdul Kalam, when he said that if you really wanted to leave your footprints on the sands of time, don't drag your feet and be focused. And I think that's exactly what Sir you were saying, that one of the key elements of Professor Chandy was that he was actually focusing on one aspect, ensure that it is getting closed, and to that way he actually ensured that there is a huge transformation which is happening. Even if you look at Kerala's industrial history also, 1970 to 1980 is the period when we have the maximum growth of the industry in the whole history. And one of the main reasons is that Professor Chandy was actually the one who was actually spearheading that whole shift as such. So this particular aspect of focusing on specifics and focusing on is an important element, especially when you are actually in a VUCA world, where changes are happening so much around us. So what I thought, I would primarily look at a few drivers of transformation, since we have limited time. Maybe 2 or 3 major drivers of transformation, primarily in a global way, but maybe something from a national context also. And then we look at whether this is actually something which is only happening as an incremental change, or there are some paradigm or fundamental shift is happening or not. So my premise is that there is a fundamental shift which is happening. I'm sure that as professionals you may have difference of opinion and you may have views on that. So and if there is a shift in that, then there is a different way of looking at it. So that how do we actually look at the management as such is going to address to this transformation is something which we need to actually look at, and maybe perhaps we look at how do we have roadmap for excellence first. So since we are speaking about a management academic and a professional, I think it may be good to start with the evolution of the management itself. The evolution of a management itself we know that with the industrial revolution 200 years back, we have the scientific management principles actually came in the late 18th century. The industrial revolution actually started in the early 18th century. But this 200 years of industrial development and the 200 years of maybe little lesser than that, maybe 150 years of management thought and practice and the things which we practice today, this has actually led to a lot of growth in the world. If you look at the GDPs of most of the world, including the world as well as various countries, and different countries will have different type of a growth. But if you look at from 1820s onwards, in the initial period, that is till the industrial revolution picks up, it was actually going very slow, and then it has actually really grown in an exponential manner. And a country like India actually now started adopting many of these practices, and it has grown on that. Now the question people wish to ask is that this GDP growth has really resulted in anything positive or not. And there's a very interesting book which speaks about we are actually living in a better world, which actually tells you, I'm sure that picture may not be that easy for you, but just to put a point, what is shown on this side is what was happening in 1800, and what is shown on the right side is what has happened today. So for example, almost every parameter, whether you think about poverty, you have around 86 if you take 100 people, 86 people were in poverty in 1800s. Today it is only around 8 people. Same is the case with the child mortality. You had around 40 people used to die before the age of 5 in 1800s. Today it is hardly around 1 or 2. So in almost every livelihood parameters, there is actually an improvement which has happened, and there is a causality between what has happened on the wealth creation, which is primarily through the industrial development and the management thought, which is a part of it, and the type of major larger aspect of it, and the typical human life indices as such. Now this is also, when you look at the prime mover of this development, is also the consumption of the oil or the energy in total. If you look at the picture, which is interesting, that exactly similar to growth of the economy, you actually see the energy also is good. So while this is very positive and it has changed many of our lives, in fact most of us are able to sit here, we are able to use many things which we currently take it for granted because of this development, and accessibility has come, professionalism has come. We also have along with that we also have a problem. The problem is we also have put similar type of exponential relation of the pollution, carbon dioxide into the air as such, which today leads to another exponential thing which we call as a disasters. So you can see that all these are getting sort of a correlation per se, and we just couple of months back, if you look at what happened in Los Angeles, for example, right, which is completely unheard of, and you have seen that these sort of disasters are happening, which the natural disasters, along with that we also have business disasters which is happening. So we used to call as Titanic effect. You are a Titan in a day, tomorrow you are actually under the water. That is a type of shift which is happening even in the business field as such. And the average life of an organization is actually becoming much smaller compared to what was happening in the past as such. So this is a issue which is now being looked at a global level, and we know that when Honorable Prime Minister has gone this time, he again reiterated our commitment to COP21, even though President Trump has actually moved away from that, but we still commit on that. But globally, there is a need for moving to more of sustainable development. There is a transition for a climate resilience, and we are speaking about a world which is less carbonized, that is decarbonized, decentralized world. For us, especially for India, this is a big challenge, because at one end we are speaking about the growth. We need to think about a sustainable growth, we need to think about decarbonized growth. At the other side, we also have, our Prime Minister has given us a target that saying that by another 25 years, by 2047, we need to think about India to reach a developed nation, which means, put in a very simple words, from a 3.2 trillion economy, we wanted to become a 32 or 35 trillion economy, which is 10 times growth. A 10 times growth in next 20 years means that almost 8 to 9% growth every year. And 8 to 9% growth every year consistently means you need to actually, you need to grow substantially in almost all activities. It's a great thing for business, but at the same time, think about this. Every 1% growth of GDP requires 1% growth of infrastructure. Just take that alone. If you are thinking about a 10% growth every year, every 10 years we are going to double our infrastructure. Which means by 2047, we are going to make 4 times the infrastructure which we have. How much of steel we need to produce, how much of cement we need to produce, how much of roads we need to produce, how much of railways we need to produce. That is the question. How do we actually make this sort of huge growth, accelerated growth, at the same time, we don't want to follow what has happened in the West, which was actually consuming huge amount of resources when they are actually going to grow for growth. So this is a shift which is pertinent, and it's a good transformation. It's a good problem to solve, but it's a hard problem to solve. That is one of the transformative things which is happening around in the world as such, and more so for our country. The second aspect is about what we today call as a deglobalization. We used to speak about, I'm sure that in KMA itself we discussed quite a bit about globalization, etc. But today we started speaking about deglobalization. So for example, if you go back before the Industrial Revolution period, everything was focused on smaller villages. I'm speaking about 17th century, 18th century, early period, etc. And even to some extent before the 19th century. And whatever is excess, you actually started shipping to other places. But then people found that this is actually creating some sort of problems for them. They started putting tariffs in between. And people were actually working more and more on silos per se. Then people started thinking about, and the management, with the evolution of management and evolution of more of commerce, there's discussion happens, and these discussions actually started reducing the tariffs, removing the tariffs. We used to have free trade agreements and things like that. This was what happened during the almost till around the early stages of 20th century. But 20th century saw a very different thing. 20th century saw that people can move from one place to other place very fast. So you don't have to actually manufacture, or you need not to make things in a very small format. You can actually make in a very, very large format. And that large format manufacturing, which is very familiar for us today, called as massification, is become the in thing. But when we started doing massification, after some time they found that massification also is good if you do it in the places where the things are very cheap. The people are cheap, the resources are cheap, and then the industries actually started moving from one another, like what Mr. Trump told recently, that all our American industries have moved out, and now we need to bring it back. It actually moved away. We know that the industrialization, the globalization which we spoke about, the stage, the area of what we call as period of globalization, and what we call as hyper globalization, where almost all the Western manufacturing has actually moved to other part of the world, into the Asia and even to the Africa per se. Now this world was there for quite some time, and we are actually speaking about this world, and this is something many of us actually got benefited also. But today we are also now going back to a world where, are we going back to the old circles? Are we actually making ourselves more concentrated? Trump is one example, but you also have so many nationalist governments come in Europe, where people start speaking about more of trade restrictions and trade limitations, etc. That is a globalized world, or deglobalized world it is in front of it. And like the president mentioned, you also have a technology which now allows you, even if you are a deglobalized production, you can still align them using the technology per se. But the question we need to ask is that how prominent is this trend? Is it only a rhetoric or is it really happening? And whether that will be the impact or not. So people who are working, I just took this deglobalization as a topic because that's not generally being discussed much, but that is a trend which could actually make big changes in the way we actually operate, even including the outward migration. Some of the students sitting in the backside may be thinking about also. So such, is it really happening or something which we need to actually start looking at? So the best way of looking at is what is happening in the world flows, objective measures, the exports, imports, cross-border investments and immigration and things like that. So if you look at that, you see that it was growing in a fast rate, but it has actually sort of stabilized. Now we used to call today, this has called what is known as a globalization. From a globalization, we put a new word called globalization, which is basically it has actually not, it's from the peak it is actually coming down, but it's not substantially come down, but it is actually coming down. So the trade measures, trade flows has actually sort of stabilized or even started reducing it. But if you look at the other measures like investments, especially the FDIs, which is happening, almost every part of the world the FDIs is actually increasing, US being the major entity for that. The growth is actually going to go up, but smaller correction at the top. So there is an investment which primarily shows that people are still investing in other part of the world. And if you look at immigration, where people are actually moving out, or people are going from other parties going out, it is also again becoming stagnating. It's not come down, but it is stagnating, except in countries like Germany and Canada where it is increasing, but otherwise it is stagnating. So the objective measures does not really communicate that there is a huge deglobalized trend as such. But today, what happened is that we are working in a world where data always, or data, published data is always something which is staying. What we generally look at is the data which is live, what people speak about, what people are speaking about. That's basically where we actually look at other measures. What are the policy changes happening in the world? What are the things people are speaking about? Now, if you look at the policy changes, whether it is a Brexit, whether it is a US trade policy, whether it is a trade war, which is, again, it has accelerated after Trump came, and the EU Chips Act, and many of those, it all shows that the countries are actually going back into a world where they actually start protecting themselves higher. But more importantly, today, especially those of you sitting in the back, the students knows that many times we actually use other tools like public sentiments, sentiment analysis, what is happening in the Google, what is people are searching, etc., which may not be very, very scientific to the extent which has been done, but that gives you a very interesting trend because this is something gives you the earlier thing. So if you look at the number of articles which has been published today in the world with the theme of deglobalization, the theme of China plus one policy, the theme of local manufacturing, localization, you see that is increasing in exponential manner. So this is actually a leading indicator. The leading indicator is that what people are actually looking at, and in a very simple thing like a Google search of people of deglobalization tells you that there is a trend which is going up. So this is still not translated into actual trade flows because as of now we always know that we get a data little afterwards, but there is a clear trend in the world where people are actually start speaking about it, and more so because the politics of change, where a large amount of countries are now becoming nationalized. There is a lot of hate against the immigrants. And we also see that the protective trade regimes are actually coming in. So, and add to that, the COVID brought in another change, where supply chain disruptions becomes very, very common. Two major events, pandemic and Ukraine war, actually made a lot of countries started realizing that unless we have our own facilities with us, we will actually have a challenge. So we are actually moved from a world which is very, very globalized. We actually think about a business in other parts of the world in a big way to a world which is slowly shifting to deglobalization, along with making it more sustainable from a pollution angle as such. The third thing which is generally being discussed, the third trend which is looked at is also about the technological disruptions. That is another interesting aspect which to me, which generally being discussed. In fact, I believe last year, K.T. Chandy Memorial Lecture also spoke about how leadership happens in an AI world. And if you look at that, the digital transformation is actually becoming a key inroads today. It is not just that it is being adopted as a technology, which is like our chairman rightly pointed out, today adopting of technology is very common. It's not just only computers or ERP, but we are now speaking about AI and things like that. But what is more important for us to look at as management professionals is how these are getting developed, the speed at which they are getting developed, and who is actually developing it. Now think about a product like what all of us use, called UPI, right? The GPays but UPI as a public infrastructure. If you ask who developed it, then comes a very interesting answer. It is actually developed by public. It is not developed by one individual or not developed by a company. Of course, NPCI markets it, but it is developed by a public as a collaborative effort. Many things which are now happening is actually not being developed within the confines of organizations. So the classical management always thought about, I have an organization, I have employees working, and employees will contribute to me. From that, we move to a world where I have an organization, I may outsource to a contracting or an outsourcer, he will make it for me, and I may actually do the other activities. Today, we are going to a world where I don't do anything, others will do it for me. Not fully, but actually partially. Now, this is something, a big world. I don't think in our management schools we teach people how to actually motivate people who cannot be, who are not being paid anything, who are not being given any incentives. How do you actually motivate a person who actually will work for you? You cannot pay anything for them. That is a world today. That is a shift which is happening, especially with the youngsters. Those people sitting there in the back, you ask them if they do assignments, they may not do it. But if they are having a project or something which is for a larger good, they will all jump at it. So that is a shift which is happening, and that is also because the model of technology development has completely changed. The model of technology development has changed from an organization alone developing it. Organization is actually making a part of it and allowing cloud to develop it so that it becomes faster for development per se. So this shift is happening in technology domain. It's actually creeping into other areas also. Fast Track, which all of us again use, is actually came through a hackathon. So it is actually not developed by a group of people sitting there and developing. It's a fantastic product. So you have seen that things which we are currently using, many of them are actually coming through these sort of cloud models per se. And this added to this, we have a typical challenge we speak about with AI, which is primarily where the work of cognition, which most of us do, is actually getting automated. Just like physical labor got replaced by machines in the early stages of automation, we are now thinking about mental labor, cognitive labor is actually getting automated through the machines per se. And this shifts to me this along with the other two forces to me actually makes a fundamental shifts in the management. And that is a key transformation, I believe, is something which we should actually start taking cognizance of, or maybe we should actually start discussing about. The paradigm shift is something which is very visible, which is the adoption of technology. President mentioned that about how his organization itself is actually doing by looking at a decent centralized way of looking at the disparate units, etc. And that's, you have quite a bit of that is currently happening. And we also see that people have started using more database decisions as such. And we also see that the newer ways of companies working, the individuals working, work from home, gigs and many other things. It happened in IT industry, it's happening in other areas also. And you also see quite a bit of other work patterns. But what is not visible, but that is happening is, there is a emergence of what we call as a self. From this massification, which was the world which we are all familiar with, where we all familiar that things can actually be delivered at a very low cost because we make it in very volumes. We are actually going to a world where quite a bit of things are now becoming very specific. The world has moving from a world of mass to specific. Again, massification brings in unsustainability. Smaller scale operation brings in better efficiencies, at least lower carbon emissions, etc. I'm sure that nobody would have believed that you could actually make the power in your home if somebody told you this 10 or 15 years back. Today, I'm sure that many of you sitting here, your houses are being powered by your own solar rooftops as such. This is one simple example of how decentralization is happening. And so, it's like this education. The students are actually being today, if somebody knows how to use ChatGPT properly, you can actually make ChatGPT as your personal tutor. You wanted to learn a language, you don't have to go to a tutor, you don't have to go to a standard class. You can actually make whatever your learning path, it will actually help you to do that. So you are actually becoming much more personalized as such. The second thing is, there is also a world which is becoming more of creator economy than an economy creators. We are familiar with a world where economy creators were there. In fact, again, the President mentioned a very important point when he started. He said that the companies are actually being given by a group of professional managers and employees who will contribute to that. Very true. But then, in the conventional model, what used to happen is there are several people in between. Through this, their work actually get transferred. Today, many people actually sort of disintermediate all those things. Think about a very simple example of you are a musician. You have to actually make your music known to all the people. Maybe 10 years back, if you want to do that, you go to a music company will publish your album, and in the process they take you 80% or 90% of whatever return they get. Today, if you are a good singer, you create your own channel, and you may get 80 to 90% of what your return is. So the economy creators are now becoming creator economy per se. With newer technologies like blockchain and what we call as decentralized autonomous organizations, etc. coming in, this becomes more prevalent. The third, which more challenging, is that there is a dissolution of centralized institutions. The people's trust in each other, when it is provided by technology, is much more than people's trust in centralized institutions. This is an interesting shift, because if you ask senior people sitting here, if you wanted to go if you wanted to go and stay somewhere, what will you do? You will actually think about a brand. You will think about a star rating by a government agency. You ask youngsters, where will they go and stay? They will never look at these things. They only look at ratings. They look at something which their colleagues and peers have told it is good, they will believe that. If I have a doubt, when I studied, I will go and ask my teacher. If my daughter has a doubt, she will go to Quora. And she will actually ask that doubt from a colleague somewhere else in the world. The world has moved from a world where centralized institutions are actually running the show to a lot of decentralized networks. Decentralization becoming, provided technology provides you that. That's the reason why we are happy to go into a car where a stranger is driving. We have no idea. But we know that somebody else has traveled in the same car and said that this driver is great. Or we allow a person to stay in my house if I have an Airbnb room in my house, because somebody else told that this guy is actually the guy who is coming and staying is good. And that guy also knows that the host is a great guy because somebody else who stayed said that it is a great place as such. So you are moving away from the star ratings and stamps and centralized institutions, etc. Think about this in banking. In a centralized institutions like in banking, what is going to be the type of disruption which is going to happen in places where trust was happened only because of some centralized elements as such. So you see there is a shift which is happening in this context, which is the third thing. And this also leads to another important thing, which is very controversial. The controversy is that we are actually moving from a world of shortages to a world of abundance. There's a very interesting book by Peter Diamandis, which I think if you have not read, please do read. That's a very interesting book. The title is called Abundance, which basically speaks about a world where when people collaborate, how much of wealth it can actually generate. Think about Airbnb, and we give an example of Airbnb. Just because people started collaborating and allowing things, it actually created more properties in the world, which Marriott could make it several years by investing huge amount of money. You suddenly see that the world become a world of abundance, because like Gandhiji said, you have enough for everybody's need, but not for greed, and we were hoarding that. If there is a method to unhoard that, and technology provides you that sort of a cover, it actually gives you a very different world altogether. And this is a world which is going to make a huge amount of disruption. So these three factors, and as we know that factors may not come very fast, it may come slowly, but it comes very rapidly at some point of time. When the tipping point is gone, it actually comes very, very fast. So this disruption leads to three levels of change. It actually changes our operations. In fact, one example, Honorable President mentioned how remote countries thing is actually being managed centrally from Kochi itself. That's an example of how technology can be used for remote management, smart operations, to a world where we started thinking digitally, digital world of thinking. Now, my contention or my premise is that when we move into that world, we may actually start rewriting many of our management paradigms, management thoughts, because the management thought conventionally was focused on a world which was of shortages, which was of competition, which is of areas where conventionally it was thinking like that. We need to actually start looking at it in a very different manner as it. So these forces and transformation led to what we call as a fundamental shift, where in a world of automobiles or the oil economy, everything was mass. From a mass economy, we are actually moving to a data economy. And when we move to a data economy, it is not that data economy is not pollution free and all, that's a different story altogether. But primarily, the shift is from centralization to decentralization. And you also see that there is quite a bit of aspects which we mentioned earlier, like emergence of self, new factors of production. In the past, if you think about creating a 100 crore company, you always start thinking about a very big land. In Startup Mission, which I was fortunate to head for some time, we have several companies who have created 100 crore, 200 crore in maybe 10,000 square feet space. Gen Robotics being on, which is generally being quoted. They are 200 crore company here today. Their geographical footprint is not more than 20,000 square feet. So you are actually moving to a world where the land, labor, capital, which is the conventional factors of production, to what we call as a talent, the IP and network become a very, very important element as such. So this shift is something which is the aspect of the data economy. The question we need to ask is that, is our management systems and practices at individual levels, at organization levels, or at the education levels, are they actually be capable of addressing this shift? Organizations will do, because organizations are very resilient. Organizations will always adapt to that. But I'm not sure about the education systems. Education systems many times lag on that. So it's time that we need to really be cognizant about this. Elon Musk has set up a company without even a single MBA in them, right? So you have seen that companies are actually started looking at creating big things without actually looking at the so-called management education professionals, unless management education actually makes a substantive change as such. In fact, our Honorable Venugopal sir mentioned about how professionals actually created a big change in the education. That world is actually have to come back. And it was actually the great vision of the people who started IIM Calcutta and IIM Ahmedabad, to bring people from professionals as the directors. People who have proved their mettle in industry as the directors. That actually made the things different. Because I studied in a management institution which was actually much older than both these. Many of you may not be knowing that the first management school in the country is actually started in Indian Institute of Science, way back in 1948. But it never took off, because it was always headed by academicians. They did not really actually make to the next level as such. So they actually they were doing more of management research than actually on the management practice. And same thing was happening in many other places. That is the reason why the Honorable then Prime Minister said that if you really wanted to ensure that our public sector has to go for higher level of efficiencies, etc., we need to bring professional management. That is the whole seeding of the IIMs per se. So the point is that this world has actually come to that stage where we need to actually start rethinking our management education as such. So just to have two more slides, I'll not take much of time. Some of the approaches may have to be very different in this new world to master. We need to actually start thinking about, can I actually make customization and scale at lower levels? And that is very good for a state like Kerala, because if you have read the old work of Richard Franke and Dr. Thomas Isaac, one of the Kerala model, which of course has not been discussed that well, is that Kerala has actually ensured that very, very low geographical footprint is enough, resource footprint is enough to create high levels of human development index. That is actually the strength of the state. We actually showed that we could actually bring universal health, we can bring universal education, we can actually bring high levels of child mortality, lower rate of child mortality rate, etc. at the cost which is almost 1/50th of what a developed country has done. It's an innovative model the state has actually developed across years. That will actually be the great management model for us to into the organizations when we wanted to create economies at scale, at a lower scale as such. Same way, we need to actually start looking at the inside out to the outside in approach. We need to actually look at what is happening around and then do that. And from a reactive model, we need to actually think about a proactive, where a lot of unstructured data is around us, which need to start looking at. And moving from addressing the current issues of management philosophies and other things. So, in other words, we need to actually look at build to last to build to adaptable models per se. And also, we also started looking at machine. No more is actually, we cannot actually speak about a world where AI is going to be away. It is we need to actually start learning how we actually tame the AI. Now, I used to say that people, when they speak saying that AI will take away jobs, if we were discussing this thing in 100 years back, we could have said the same thing. That is, we have automobiles coming in, the people who are doing the horse rides and manual labor is actually going to change, and there is going to be a huge amount of unemployment. And that is basically where, again, a great Kerala leader, Swami Srinarayana Guru, he said at that point of time that if you know about Shivagiri Tirthadana, right? Shivagiri pilgrimage is not general pilgrimage. Guru said that if you really wanted to ensure that humanity grows, skill development have to happen at that point of time. In fact, Shivagiri Tirthadana is about that. To learn from people on many things, and one of the things he spoke about is skill development, because he understood that by doing skilling, you will be able to ensure that the next level of growth can happen. The same thing is happening today when technology is actually making a huge inroads. People will actually need to go into next set of jobs and next set of skills per se. So that happens, and that digital transformation is actually the important element as such. So given this, let me close by saying that when you reimagine the management of the future, we need to actually start looking at what are the challenges of the existing management thought and practice. The perils of efficiency and reductionism is the important thing. We solve problems by dividing into parts and solving it. We are focusing only on the efficiency part of it. In fact, so much so that some of you know that Milton Friedman, the great economist who got the Nobel Prize, came out with a very interesting statement in 1970s, which has been discussed quite extensively, saying that the only social responsibility of business is to make profit. He said it is an interesting way he spoke about. He said that everything else should be done by, if individuals do, that's fine, but business should make only profit. Now this has been debated and discussed, and we all shun this thought, but think about it. Is not our organization still subscribed to a large extent? Unfortunately, yes. It is. Otherwise, during the pandemic, many organizations have cut down people, reduced the salary levels, made many of those changes. That's primarily because it again goes back to Friedman's thesis. Now, Friedman's thesis is actually is for a world of shortages. Friedman's thesis is for a world where only competition succeeds. It may be true for a country which is growing at 1%, not for a country which is growing at 9% and 10%. For a country which is growing at 9% and 10%, collaboration becomes an important thing. It is not that. We need to actually transit to look at larger treatment of issues. We need to actually start rethinking the disciplines and think about interdisciplinary aspects, etc. And since I come from a management domain, I believe that we need to rediscover the management, especially a person who has actually brought in the management thought. What IIMs have done, but unfortunately that has not percolated down into many other institutions, is that we still focus only on knowing part of it. There's a huge emphasis on knowing. Knowing alone will not make management education complete. It will not make people to succeed in this new paradigms per se. You need to do, and you also should have to be being, where the values, ethics becomes important thing by being a part of it. And that holistic education can actually bring a big change to us as such. So let me close by saying that not all storms comes to disrupt our life. Many comes to clear our path. This is what Paulo Coelho said. Perhaps this shift which is happening, the shift for climate resilience, the shift for deglobalization, the shift of technology, most of them, if you go into depth, is actually going to help countries with limited resources, countries which want to grow very fast, and for people who have got sort of an innate sense of responsibility and humaneness as such. And perhaps that's the right thing for all of us. But then, candles, by doing more and more research on candles, you will not get electric bulb. You need to think in a completely different way. I believe that the transformation world is about that. We need to think in a very different way. Thank you very much for a very patient listening.
Friends, as we all know, it was a great listening to this stalwart management guru. For paucity of time, I think we will not go for the question and answer session as discussed. Yeah, just two questions. I think, and we'll have to close.
One for students, one for you.
No, sorry sir for asking one question in spite of the time shortage. Thank you very much sir for your futuristic talk, and I am very enlightened. I'm still stuck at the globalization stage, and many of the things you mentioned, it opened my eyes to several ideas that you have put forward. My questions are two, maybe satirical questions. What if Trump was listening to your lecture? Will he change his way of running things from White House? First question. Second is the Kerala ideology of communism, which is thrown away by the originators of communism, still being fondly developed and assisted by mass in Kerala, putting brakes on the progress of Kerala. Two questions. Thank you, sir.
Okay. The first question, I think my feeling is that many things which President Trump says, he's only signaling many of these things. It may not that he will finally implement many things. He may actually signal it, saying that there is a need. Of course, he has a challenge. There is a modeling which is being done on what will happen to the world if Trump comes into power from a climate point of view. Right? It is actually, I actually discussed in my climate sessions on that. So they actually speak about if net zero is reached, we will have 1.5 degree increase in temperature. If net zero is actually not reached and it's going to go in a slow, it's actually going to go up, like 2.8, 3.4, like that. And the increase of temperature means parts of the world will go underwater. That is a sad part. So that is something which is actually evident in the context of US also. And I was in one of the global startup meeting, I was there, and Al Gore was the person who spoke. So he was saying at that time the Trump has withdrawn from Paris, 2000, not down, 2007. So he was saying, Al Gore was saying, he made a statement saying that it's important to understand that US laws takes time to meet. And President's term is only 4 years. This is what he said. And we have seen that, right? After 4 years, it's got changed, and then when Biden came, he actually went back. And so while it's an area of concern, but I think it's more of a signaling. Second thing is, at the end, Americans trade in America. Last time also he did this. Then what happened that time is that other countries silently created their own FTAs. And they started working on that. Same thing might happen. So US will actually lose if they too much insist on that. So that's a sort of a prediction for that. The second question, which you said that the communism in Kerala, I think the old model of communism, or which was present at the starting stage of industrialization, and that's the communism was the result of, or Marxism was the result of a industrialization world where there's a class differences are there. That has actually gone for a lot of transformation across the world, right? And that transformation, whether it has been adopted by Keralites or not, I don't know. But I can only say that it may not be spoken, but it is adopted in practice. Otherwise, when I became a CEO of a startup mission, people came and asked this question: how do a communist government support entrepreneurship? And we said that it's not true that somebody said that poverty is the only equalizer. Communism speaks about equalization. Equalization is not necessarily you be poor and equalize is one. Second is you be wealthy and equalize also, right? So rather than being poor and equalize, you move to wealthy and equalize. There also equalization happens. So the socialism or communism can have two levels where you try to ensure that the wealth is properly distributed, but create wealth first. So that is a paradigm which I think we need to adopt as it. But like you said, maybe in the masses, this sort of issues are there. But I believe that if you look at what Sri Bhagavavala has written in his book, right, it actually tells you that with all these things which we say, there is a lot of positives in Kerala. There are a lot of organizations, even sitting here, including our president. You can see that how the companies can actually grow in our soil, right? Within all these challenges which surround us. And we have seen they are not grown just like this. They have actually grown and become global leaders. They become Asian leaders. So that power is something which we need to look at. And he made a very important point in that book. I don't know whether you have read that book. The point he made is that if any part of the world have to need sustainable economic development, first social development has to happen. Kerala has got that. The social indices are already done. Now we need to actually start thinking about economic development. And that economic development, if aligns with the social development, you can really grow. And I think that is where organizations like ours have to play a big role. Because we need to actually, common rhetoric is what? Common rhetoric is nothing is happening, right? Everything is negative. You know, somebody was saying that when I go to sleep, I see a crime file and go. And how do I actually have a positive mindset? So that is a type of a world which we are living in. So I think professional associations have to seriously start thinking about development growth. And like Ramchandra Guha has written, no, India grows in night when government sleeps. So organizations like ours should ensure that whatever government is there, beside that there is a huge growth potential which is there. And that's the only way we can actually retain the youngsters here. That's the only way we can actually make a very positive growing society for us. And that's what my take on that.
What's the name of the book, sir, by Balgopal?
Under the radar. Under the radar. Kerala industry. Below the radar. Sorry, below the radar.
Below the radar.
Below the radar. Kerala growth in stealth. 50 companies. It's a properly researched book.
It's a very
Good evening, sir. I'm Adria.
That'll be the last question, please. Yeah.
I'm Adria from Bhavans Royal Institute of Management. My question is, how do you think that the management is transforming the value creation of Gen Z?
Oh yeah, great. The Gen Z is the one who is actually have a very different model of growth per se, right? Because we have actually moved in a world where along with this normal economic growth, there is three more things which are happening. One is there is a community economy, that is sharing economy. There is that is where you started sharing access economy, sharing economy, and platform economy. These three things are actually the contribution of the Gen Z person. So in a newer model of growth, people actually started sharing a lot of their resources with each other. Collectively, you are able to develop it. So, for example, today when I am developing a solution, I actually go to GitHub and see some of this.
Why should somebody actually put their product in the kitchen or in Hugging Face? Why do they want to put? They need not have to, right? But they do, because I am actually ensuring that my growth will also depend on somebody else's growth along with it. So this concept has come from a Gen Z model, and that's primarily because people are actually moving from little bit away from conventional competition to a collective excellence person. So that is something which is where a slightly new world order or slightly new management thought is actually going to get evolved. And that I think will have a very interesting connotations in the days to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saji. Now, for first, kindly, Dr. Anil Joseph, give you the one.
Good evening all. Indeed, it was a wonderful session. The management in the age of transformation, a very transformative lecture. So much of thought-provoking ideas, right from the basic equation, deglobalization, transforming technology, the evolving climate changes which is going to happen, and what is there in future. But one thing is there, the change is happening and we have to adopt the change. Recently I was listening to a talk by a professor from IIT Bombay called D.N. Singh, and he was talking about the technology that he is thinking of a concept of catching the carbon from the air and converting it and taking it deep down into the sea and getting it recycled into an oxygen format. So all these things about the Trump going out and coming out and the issues of this, how worried about the global warming and all, according to him, it's an R&D which is going to happen in that line. Because wherever we go now, we talk about climate change, the global warming, the world is going to sink down. So there will be coming technologies which will, because the fossil fuels was invented sometime before, but the world was there much before that. So he says that a lot of works are happening. They are working on technologies which can transfer that and to come up with a solution to the problem. That's what the post-peace and change is going to happen. What a wonderful speech, and let's give a good big round of applause. So what we thought was the system is changing dramatically, and that was the message. Thank you very much, Saji sir, for that excellent talk. And again, our sir, as always, VCG sir has perfected it, and we walked the time memory, starting from the good old days, how the first IAM was created in Calcutta, and how K.T. Chandy contributed to the growth. The entire spine of the industry network in Kerala came up. Thank you very much, sir, for deeping in elaboration and taking our memory through the walk through the stages of life. So we were insisting that he should write a book, pen down, and we tell that making of coaching has to be made to making of Kerala. And he has so much of connection and networking which has gone into, and he was a player who made it happen. So only the players who have played the game can write about how the match was. So I request you to think over that particular point in doing this. I will thank our dynamic president, Bibu Puneran, for the excellent session, and thank you very much for the technology he was sharing with us, how their technology is, their field is getting disrupted with the technology and how this is happening. And this week goes to Shashi Karta, the management week, lot of celebration. He has already briefed you, so scarcity of time, I am not repeating that. So wonderful programs in hand. Thank you, Shashi, for doing a great job. As always, the man who was the pillar of support, director of the Cochin International Airport Limited, makes so much of wonderful things. He came with this idea, this memorial talks chair. Excellent. Once again, thank you very much for bringing the right person in and sharing a very thought-provoking talk on K.T. Chandy Memorial Lecture. Thank you very much for that. I would like to thank the past president, Nirmala Lili, ABK and Vivek to be present here. Dilip and Sujata, MC members joining us today. All those, our regular present attendees for the KMM meeting. The students who are have to take quite a lot of things from this talk today, but from both of them, to understand what is going to happen and where the changes are going to come. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. So see you again on 19th when we have the another session and we have to give the mementos. So may I request President to hand over the memento to our guests today, Saji Gopinath and VCG. Thank you all, and let us all stand up for the national.
नायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे